Okay, all right, so here we go. So I got an interesting note on Facebook. Hello. Let's get started, guys.
Well, then we can start.
Thanks. Okay. Nancy, I'm just going to talk to you. All right, so I got this really interesting note on Facebook a couple of days ago. I hit record already. I got this really interesting note on Facebook a couple of days ago from a waitress that Jennifer and I had in Kansas City like 10 years ago. It was one of those moments where...
You must be a good tipper.
Now, we've been in touch with her since that day. We went to Applebee's in Kansas City and walked in, and I was on the phone with one of the elders from our church, and I was frustrated about something that was going on, and I didn't want to be there, and they sat us in the bar area, and I didn't want to sit there because they didn't want to sit at the high table, and I was on the phone and couldn't say anything about it. And so we ended up with this waitress, and I'm fighting being in a bad mood, you know. It was one of those moments. But God made it very clear that she was someone we needed to minister to. And we asked her before our meal came, and we told her, we're going to pray over a meal. Is there anything we can pray for you about? And this was one of those moments where she broke down and began to share her life with us. Total strangers. Didn't know I was a minister at the time, and just began to share some really challenging things. Began to share questions she had about faith. And she would stand by her table for a little bit and talk, and then she'd go, I'll be right back. And she'd run and go fill someone's drink or take someone's order and come back. And she was just hungry, you could tell, for more and more and more and more. And so we shared her information. She contacted us. We continued to talk to her for a long time and share faith with her and all those good things. Well, anyway, so I got a note from her a couple days ago. We hadn't really talked much, maybe twice since we've lived here in Arkansas. And she would send me notes every now and then say, I yearn for what you're doing in Arkansas. I wish I could find that there. And, I encouraged her and gave her some ideas where she could go and whatever in Kansas City. Well, she sent me the note and she said, so I will be driving down on Saturday to Cabot because I want to come to church on Sunday. And so she'll be here tomorrow. I think that's a cool thing. Don't you think that's a cool thing? I'm excited for that because I'm excited to see what God's up to in her. I don't know what God's up to. So God's up to something in her. And I'm excited to see what that's going to be. So anyway. All right, so we've got a second section then. And Kirk's going to jump off talking about ministries. And you have a handout. Try not to overwhelm yourself looking at this handout ahead of time. We'll guide you through it and show you what this means and why.
So the things that we have to problem solve, and Spencer alluded to it earlier, is when you're a church plant and you have a high ID personality style as your pastor, and someone says, hey, I really feel I'm called to do blank, and you approach the pastor and say, hey, Spencer, I'm really called to do blank, and he says, great, go for it, just do that. And that's what happens. And so one of the things that happens with that is that people do feel like they have a passion for something. They feel like they have a gift in a certain way or a talent. And over the life of a church plant, you want to welcome any of that to come in. But as he alluded to earlier, as you grow, as you come to be 400, whereas where we kind of operate on an average for the year now, that doesn't work so well. And as you grow to 800 and you grow even beyond that, it still doesn't work so well just to do that. And one of the reasons why is leadership. We struggle a lot. It's like, why don't more people get involved? Why don't more people do this? Why don't more people do that? And the answer to me always comes back to there has to be leadership really there. And we'll talk about why that is and what kind of expectations there are. But one of the ways we looked at organizing this, and there's all kinds of ways. There's church models you can look at and they go, we do this, you do that. One of the things that we came to the conclusion on, this was really a while back. It's been, I think it was last spring. Where did we go to Camp Bradley? We went to Camp Bradley for a couple days and just kind of prayed through some things. And one of the things that we thought was a great way to organize ministries, were called charter ministries. And what is a charter ministry? Well, you have a charter and you have a charter.
Yeah.
I'm off camera, sorry. You can hear me, but you cannot see me. You have charter ministries, and a charter ministry is one that basically from a structure provides a vision, a mission, and a leadership. So for instance, if someone really felt led to start a new ministry, and some of these are kind of listed there of ministries we've had or we know we need to have. Spencer talked about we don't have a security team yet, and we're past the point of having one of those. And so these are the things that you'll see at the bottom that you may be kind of looking through. But as someone might approach and say, okay, I want to start a new ministry, I really feel called to do this, how do I do that? Now we have a way to do that. And the very top ones are really what we would call charter ministries, men's, women's, children's ministry or kids, equipping ministry, an event, worship service, charter ministry, an operations, charter ministry, and the community center charter ministry, where all other things, all other ministries can be underneath that and are chartered by these high-level ministries, okay? So that's how you kind of categorize those. And so, for instance, the men's ministry would have a charter. It would say the mission of the men's ministry at Renew is this. And the vision of the men's ministry is this. And that's part of the charter. And it talks about what, kind of expectations are. And then all of these things that fall under there, different things that a men's ministry might charter or lead, fall underneath there. And they would have their own charter that maps to it. Does that make sense? It's like you have a sub-charter and then it maps to it. So that way, everybody knows what the expectations are. We have identified who the leaders are for that season or that time period. And then a ministry like what Mean Pig or Man Church is, has actually a mission and purpose. And I'll have to tell you, I'm gonna kind of, be real about what this ministry looks like right now. How many people know that we eat once a month, the men eat once a month at Mean Pig on Thursday nights? Okay, so you're aware of that. Now, here's the purpose of this. Spencer originally set it up. It was part of the original vision documents. I clearly remember, we didn't know anything about Mean Pig then, but Man Church was the idea that it was an evangelism that we need to invite men in the community to come to a safe place to meet other guys and kind of start to talk about Jesus. In a place that was kind of fun and safe and what a man would be accustomed to doing, like going to eat barbecue once a month. We have kind of gone back and forth at different times where it's been more of a social kind of issue, where we've kind of gone in fellowship and just the guys in the church have come together and we've eaten barbecue and it was good and we yucked it up for about an hour and then left and that was it. We have gone through times where we've run a devotional and it was very, it was very focused on learning something about Jesus and sharing in fellowship. It was originally meant to be that we were gathering people outside of our walls that are really not familiar to Renew and having a place to bring them in and having a devotional. It's a ministry. It's not a, hey, great, we get to eat barbecue once a month, woo, let's celebrate, our love for each other. That's great, and, burp and do all the kind of things guys do. There's more to it. And when a charter does that, then the charter clearly explains what this is supposed to do, and it exists in a breathing document that maps to it. And all of these things have ministry to it. We don't just do it for the sake of doing it. We don't do events at Renew because we just like to do events. We don't have all these busyness going on because we just like busyness. Everything is about ministry. Everything's about proclaiming the love of Christ, whether it's to our folks internal or to people outside of our walls that are in our community. Good?
Yeah.
Okay, so as you look at those charter ministries, and this is really kind of a new concept, we have a kind of an outline. I didn't print out the outline about what kind of things that we would put in the charter, but we have these ministries that fall under there, and you may be looking through these and going, okay, well, how does that work? And every ministry has to have a place to be chartered from. And we'll eventually go through, and every one of them will have a clear mission and vision that maps to their higher level charter ministry. So far, so good? Everybody have any questions? Okay, so as we go through here and you look at these, I want to let Spencer jump in here in a second because we want to talk about expectations that we have as leaders inside of these ministries. Some of these ministries have a leader or leaders already in them. Okay, Some of them, it's very clear what that looks like. Some of them do not. Some of them have no body. Some of them are really just filled in the gap by people that we ask, can you come and help us set up chairs, right? We don't have anybody directly over doing setup and breakdown in this building. I have to tell you, we have lots of logistics these days as we go in. We are growing, expanding. We have, kids programs with the daycare, and then we have, wedding, and we have things all over the place that we have a need for ministry. I talked about a security team. So there are going to be ministries that we are not doing anything with, no leadership at all. We're just kind of getting it done like we have as a church plant forever, which is amazing about Renew. We have always got things done. We're at the season now. It's time to put some structure to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we might have missed a few, and so if you see some, like for instance on the kids ministry column, Awana should be on there.
My bad.
But if there's others that we missed, let us know and we'll look at those. And of course, if there's something that needs to be created, that God is telling you we have to do this, then we need to talk about it. And we'll find a charter that will fit under what let's say you want to go out and find rocks in the stream and paint them and then go skip them somewhere. If that's a really important ministry to you, then we would have to find a charter that would fit under, and why. Does it fit and fulfill the vision, the mission of the church and of that specific charter? And we'll just talk through it. So there's more structure to that. And so here's the thing though, as you look at a list like this, because ultimately, no surprise here, part of what we're doing as a leadership academy is to train up leaders that will lead these ministries. That doesn't mean that just one person would be in charge of all the, whatever it is, Renew meals. It doesn't have to be one person. It could be multiple people. And some of them, one will work. Some of them, multiple people is really desired for various reasons. And so as you look at this then, as you look at serving, and again, last time we were together, we talked about diakonos, being a table servant, is really generically what we're all called to be as disciples, to be servant, to be a foot washer. But then there are also going to be some that are lead servants in particular areas. This is what we're talking about, being a lead servant. Now, after you have leadership in these areas, then we're going to have a ministry fair soon, like 5, 6, 7 weeks away. A ministry fair where everybody else now can come and sign up and go, yeah, I'm in, I want to serve in the rock skipping ministry or whatever it is, okay? And so I'm going to lead that one up, so don't get any ideas, okay? But we'll open up the door, the leaders will be there, it'll give you time if there's multiple leaders, and hopefully there are multiple leaders. Again, it's easier to lead things with multiple people, but we're going to talk about that in a second. But then fitting up people underneath you to diakonos with you, to serve with you, but you are the lead. You would be leading in this area. And so really to get started then, when we talk about serving, a lot of this is review. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But when we talk about serving in a particular area, all of you in here have talents and skills and abilities, physical ones. Like it's just what you do well. Everybody in the room has those. It's different, which is good. Again, a reminder that everything that we do is in the context of building up the church in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, and other places where Paul defines church like a body. And the body is composed of many parts. And these parts all work together. And you know that if you have a part of your body that doesn't work well, it makes it hard on the rest of the body. And the other parts of the body have to overcome and adapt. But when that body is healthy and everything's there and everything's working right, like when you're 16 years old, everything works right, not 41, it starts to, like this side hurts. But everything's working healthy and it's right, and people are serving and involved, and every part is working together with the same mind, unity in there, it will run and run beautifully. And so that's part of this. But each of you have physical gifts. You've been physically gifted and physically equipped. You have talents and abilities and skills. Part of that is your personality style. And so most likely you are all here for that, the DISC analysis. And you know whether you are a D or an I or an S or C or what the combination of those things are that make you hardwired a certain way to be able to accomplish certain tasks. Everybody in here has a different wiring and it works. And so what I think makes a lot of sense, and as we prayed through this and worked through this, and you think about the DISC analysis and all those different personality types, if you were to create a set of leaders, a group of people to lead together, I see and we see together 3 main things that have to be accomplished. So if you're a note taker, A on your sheet is physically gifted. So write that down. A, physically gifted, physically equipped. You have talents, abilities, and skills. Natural ones. Now can you enhance a talent or ability and a skill through practice and whatever? Absolutely. And so some of you in here, for instance, are great musicians or great carpenters or great medical people. You know, all those things. And so that's physically gifted and equipped. And so if you were to say, what personalities then, how does it all work together? If we were to create a leadership team, what kinds of things would you want in there to make it really function? It fits across all the span of the DISC model. And I think the first one you would want, by the way, it's a tripod. I think it's 3 things. 3 things work together. The first is you need an organizer. You need someone who has a personality, a skill set that is good at organizing things. Now, what kind of DISC people in here, not you individually, but what kind of DISC piece would be a great organizer? Our C's. Now, can that be a blend of other things in there? Like, a CS or a CD and things like that? Can that help in the organizing? Of course. But someone that has that C part of them is usually a good organizer. The second part that you need in there is a developer. So you have organizer and developer. A developer is someone that develops relationships well, that develops interpersonally, that can bring people in, recruit people. Maybe that's another word as a recruiter. A developer is a people developer, a recruiter. What kind of DISC person would be a great developer recruiter? An I. Okay. And then the third piece is you need a communicator. Someone that can stand out front and say, this is what the group believes. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. A person that can cast a vision and communicate and articulate everything that the organizer and developer have helped to bring to the table. What kind of good personality trait would those be? A D or an I, ID, some of those combinations in there. Now, can you have a good communicator that's a high C? Yes. Can you have a good communicator that's a high S? Yeah, you can. It all depends on the situation, depends on where they feel comfortable, depends on the mix and the talents and abilities and what other skills and social skills they have. And so all of that ties together. And so I see that as sort of a tripod leadership. So any of these things, I think what you would find the greatest success in would be that you have an organizer, a developer, and a communicator. Now, can one person fit all 3 of those? Can you have one person that they just have the ability to be an organizer, a developer, and a communicator? Can you? Yes. Can you have someone then that could have 2 of the 3? Yes. And could you have one group that they need 3 separate people to pull it off? Yes. Part of growing as a leader is knowing what your weakness is. You've got to learn what your weakness is. If you don't know, that might be your weakness, that you don't know what your weakness is. Ask your spouse or someone close to you, like put on your big boy pants and go, okay, tell me, what is my weakness? At least in this area. Am I a good organizer or not? Am I a good developer or not? Am I a good developer of people or not? Am I a good communicator or not? And figure that out. Because this is how, when you begin to build teams then, that you have other people that can come alongside, because we aren't expected to do it alone. This is, again, the model of the body of the church. God doesn't expect me to do everything here, but He wants to bring people. He adds to the church daily, those who are being saved. And as they're saved, they're given gifts to serve, and to serve God, and to serve in the church. This is what we're talking about. But they've been hardwired physically for those kinds of things, okay? And so that's what we're looking for in leadership in these roles. Now, the leadership we're talking about isn't necessarily the bold ones. Men's, overall women's, overall kids. We're going to come back to that and work through that once we flesh out the smaller ones. But what we're looking for are people that have been developed so that they can lead in these other areas and then we can recruit people to serve in those areas from the church, okay? And so, so that's A, physically gifted and equipped. B is spiritually gifted and equipped. Spiritually gifted and equipped. And so one of the things that we've talked about in this training are the spiritual gifts. What are the things that God has put in you? How has He wired you and gifted you once you became a believer? What are the gifts that you function well with? Some of you are evangelists. Some of you are prophets. Some of you are hospitality people or mercy showers or whatever. And those kinds of things. He has gifted you. If you're a believer, He has given you these gifts. Now, can those gifts develop and change for certain needs and ability? I think so, and I think He does develop certain things over time. But not everybody's going to have the same spiritual gift. Is that okay? Yes, that's good. We want a multitude of physical gifts and spiritual gifts. And part of that spiritual gifting and equipping, I think, is what do you love? You know, one of the things we talked about when we did the spiritual gifts inventory was this. An inventory can be a good thing. It's a good tool, but it's not the end of all things. Usually you know where you're gifted best by what is it that you love to do. What is it that just, when you do this, you get energized and excited. Kirk was telling me, we were talking about this yesterday a little bit, and he said, you know, when you come back out of, well, I told that little story about Angela, who we met, who's going to come to church tomorrow. That was an energizing thing. But if I get off of an airplane and I spent 2 hours talking to a PhD level mechanical engineer who is a Muslim, and we talked about the Muslim faith versus Christianity, and we also talked about Bernoulli's principle and spring mechanics and theory for 2 hours. I got off the plane and I thought I could fly. I mean, that was the most exciting 2 hours I'd had in a long time. Why do I know that that's my gifting? Because I love that stuff. Except when you're trying to determine whether or not you're going to be a church planter and you fly back from Arkansas to Kansas City and you go, please God, don't let anyone talk to me. Although then He brought other people to talk to me and told me, you got to go. And here we are. So that's good, right? But that was someone else's story. But what you love and what you love to do in that spiritual giftedness is usually a higher indicator than what some paper test can tell you. And so we've got A, which is you're physically gifted and equipped. B is you're spiritually gifted and equipped. And then there's another piece of this when you're trying to figure out, how do I serve? Where do I plug in? Where am I best suited? Well, the question is, where are you physically gifted and equipped? Where are you spiritually gifted and equipped? And let's be aware of what are your weaknesses. Now, I already talked about that in relation to, are you a good organizer, developer, or communicator? But C is, what are your weaknesses? Now, I'm going to step on your toes for just a minute. I'm not going to call you out, though, so you're safe. What have you not surrendered yet to God? What have you not surrendered yet? What sin are you harboring in your life that you're not coming clean on? These are things that will mess up the other two things. Are you with me? And so you can have wonderful talents and abilities. You can have all kinds of spiritual giftedness. You've got all kinds of sin in your life and all kinds of stuff you haven't surrendered to God, or just brokenness in general. It will harm the ability for you to function well with those other two things. Do you agree with that statement? Okay. So in praying about this yesterday, we came up with a math equation. Everybody loves math in here, right? Oh wait, Dr. Terry's not here. And so here's what I want you to write a math equation under A, B, and C. Okay? So I want you to put A times B. Draw a line under those, like you're doing a division problem, and put C underneath it. So A times B, draw a line underneath it, and put C underneath that. Equals, so A times B divided by C equals D. Equals D. All right. So we'll walk around on the next break and make sure everybody's got that. But here's what this means. That when you have your physical gifts, and you know what those are, how you've been physically equipped and gifted. When you multiply that by your spiritual giftedness.
A times B.
A times B. That's where we're at. Everybody with me? And it's not an addition thing. I originally, when I was praying about this and saw this in my head, I saw it as an addition thing. Like when you take your spiritual gift and you add it to your physical gift, but that's not the right answer. It spiritually is a multiplier of the physical. It's different than just adding it. So like if you had 3 physical gifts and talents and you multiply it by 3 spiritual gifts, you get 9. If it's an addition thing, it's just 6. Is everybody with me? Spiritual giftedness is a multiplier of anything you're good at. Anything you're good at, you add God into the mix, it multiplies that, and it's a multiplier. But that answer is divided by your weakness and your brokenness. And so what is our goal? Our goal is to get our weakness and our brokenness down to 1. And so when you divide anything by 1, what is the answer? It's that thing. What is the 1? Why not 0? Well, it would cause an error. You can't divide something by 0. You divide it by 1. What's the 1? The 1 is that we still live in, we have flesh. We'll never get rid of that on this side of life. We have flesh. That will always be part of the story. But the answer is, how do we take our physical giftedness and multiply it by our spiritual giftedness and divide that out by just being flesh, which is 1, so it has no net effect. But if we have 3 physical gifts, and now here's the deal, the numbers I'm just making up. It's really just theoretical math. It's not real math. So I'm not saying you have to, like I can build houses, I can change the oil, and no, none of that. But if you say I've got 3 physical gifts and 3 spiritual gifts, that's 9. But now that I have 3 huge weakness areas or 3 sinful areas in my life that are affecting me, I just cut that thing down from 9 to 3. Does that make sense? And so part of this in leadership is to get rid of the stuff that we're packing in. Get rid of the harboring sin. Get rid of that the stuff that we haven't surrendered. Surrender that to God. Come clean with that stuff. Let God heal you from that stuff. You know, when you repent to God, He is good to forgive you. But when you repent to other people that you've harmed, you find healing. And there's great healing in there. Or when you forgive someone of a hurt that they've done to you, it gives healing. But coming to God and letting Him work through that, it's important. It's really important. Equals D. What do you think D is? So we have our physical giftedness as a multiplier with our spiritual giftedness. Get rid of all the sinfulness and brokenness in our life as much as we can so it doesn't diminish our abilities to do what God calls us to. So that equals D. What is D? What?
The result.
The result? What does it stand for? Diakonos, discover, develop, deploy, disciple, and discipleship. It can be any and all of those. So D is discipleship for sure. It is, how do you become a disciple? Well, as a living, growing, functional disciple, it's our physical giftedness as a multiplier of our spiritual giftedness allows us to be a disciple. Again, our discipleship, though, is contingent upon our Christology. We need to have the right Christology that allows us to be the right disciple. But that D is also diakonos. This is where we serve. Our physical giftedness as a multiplier with our spiritual giftedness gives us an idea of where we serve and how we serve well. Everybody with me on that? Now here's the beautiful thing. A separate math equation then is we take our diakonos, our serve, and we multiply that now by God's provision. What is God's provision? So if you put that D times G, God's provision, which is God gives you the resources you need and the money you need. You know, that's one of those questions. Like when I ask church planters this when I'm coaching them, I'll say, if money were no object, what would you do in the next 3 months? If you didn't have to worry about the budget, what would you do? What grounds would you try and take for the Lord if money weren't an issue? It's always interesting to hear those answers. You know, hopefully what I hear is we do the exact same thing. So we're not dependent on whether we have money or not. We're doing this. Is what God's called us to. Oh, great. That's great. Don't usually hear that, but that's what the answer part is anyway. But we take now our diakonos, our desire to serve, and multiply that now by God's provision, and the result is infinite possibilities. Infinity. Infinite possibilities. When people are saying, I'm willing to serve, I'm willing to wash feet, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to reach some. This is what Paul says. Paul's message was very clear. I will do whatever it takes to reach a few. Outside of sin, Paul wasn't willing to go sin. But outside of sin, Paul's willing to do anything it takes. Diakonos times God's provision is an infinite number of things. Infinite strength and power because of what God's doing. And so where we go from there then is back to this. So part of this experience and leading up to today has been, how have you been physically gifted? What are your talents, skills, and abilities? Part of it has been, what are your spiritual gifts? How's God wired you? What is it that you know how to do? What is it God's gifted you to do? And now let's put them together and say, okay, God, show me, where do I serve? When you serve with this, this is how you don't get burned out serving. Now, here's the thing though. If you signed up and said, well, I want to be part of Setup Breakdown, you need to know that that's not a life sentence. One of the challenges in the church world is people think, if I sign up for this, I will die here. Like, I will never get out. This is, in several ministries, I've heard it over the years. People are like, I signed up to do it once. The next thing I knew, 16 years had gone by, and I'm still doing it, and I haven't been in one worship service in 16 years. I've heard people say that to me. Don't get freaked out there. This is for a season. Remember, we started there. Seasons of life. In this season, as we leave summer behind and go into fall, and as we begin to see God continue to grow and move, and as we go into more than 2 services, as we expand our online side even, and communicate that message out beyond ourselves and beyond this town, or expanding the online so that people in this town can watch it to figure out what is it like before I come, because a lot of people want to do that. And I hear a lot of people do that. Some of you probably did that. You watched online first, and then you said, okay, it doesn't look too scary, I'll go ahead and come. To expand those things, it's this season. That means that next year when we do Leadership Academy, we're going to have probably not this many, but maybe 25 more people that will come into that Leadership Academy. And at the end of next year, they're going to be ready to jump in. And so maybe there's a time where you step aside and let them come in, or maybe you're a good organizer and developer, but not a good communicator, and that person's coming in the next few months. Does that make sense? And so we move things around. Or maybe you say, hey, I've done this rock skipping ministry for a year. I'd like to try to do this now. Is that okay? And the answer is yes, let's do that. If you're gifted for it and God's opening the door, let's make those things happen. So don't be afraid that if you pick something, you go, this is the end of my life. I'm going to live and die at Renew doing the bus ministry or whatever. Don't freak out there. This is for a season. How's God gifted you? And what is it leading to? Because it's bringing us to this moment in time.
I would say too, when you look at these things too, has to be very abundantly clear. You may serve in any one of these ministries. Some of you are actually leading. We are asking you to be an organizer, a developer, or communicator, or one or more of those in these groups, to be leaders. We will have a ministry fair that will allow people to participate in these ministries. It doesn't mean you can't participate in any one of these ministries. But we are clearly asking you to consider leading in some capacity as one of those 3, or maybe doing those 3 roles are important in these ministries. I mean, we just at the season now where we have to plug in people to lead these, and the really makes these ministries work well are good leaders, having good leaders in these ministries. And so I think where we want to go with this now and looking through this now. Our vision of next session is really working sessions to make these ministries and prepare them for the rest of the church body to come in and plug into them, knowing that we have charters and visions. So we're looking at a workshop next time we meet to really work on the charter, the vision, the direction, so that we can actually get out into the Renew body and have people plug in. And so I prayerfully look through this list. We can talk through things that you're not quite sure what this means or how it works or what expectations are. We probably won't have a lot of time to go through that, with what we have left now because of some of the other things we want to cover. But I think that what's fair is that you look at this list, you ask questions. Spencer and I can answer, those questions on this list. And then you pray through this and go, where can I be a leader? That's what we're here for. Where can I be a leader in these things? And again, some of you are already there, but this is a need. This is the season that we really need folks like you to step in and go, we're leaders, we're diakonos.
So who are our C people in here? Love C. We need some of your help probably in the next couple of weeks to collect these things and help us to diffuse through them. Because if we get 40 or so of these sheets and everybody has 5 things on there, it's going to take some work. And for C people that love spreadsheets or whatever, I don't get that, but okay. You know, fitting that stuff in so we can make some heads or tails of it, and to be able to move that forward. And part of that means that as you list down what is your top preference, I want to lead in this area, it may not be the right thing based on what kind of personality breakdowns and things that we see. Because part of this, like for instance, if we have 18 people show up or sign up for Renew Meals, for instance, I know that won't happen. It would be awesome if it did, but it won't. We don't need 18 leaders in the Renew Meals ministry. And if you were to look at it and say, well, out of the 18, 9 of them are all high I's and the other 9 are all D's, it wouldn't work. You need an S in there to be a good, team person that's making sure everybody's feelings aren't hurt and, working it through. And you need a C in there to make sure there's a schedule. This person's going to get meals for the next 5 days, and you're going to do it day 1. You're going to do, and then you need the I that's going to be, getting excited, talking to the family. And does that make sense? And so part of this is diffusing through. That's why we're asking you to list 5 in order. And we'll do the best that we can to plug you into some of the highest level ones. But again, if you end up with, number 4 or 5 and you're miserable there, you need to tell us. Hopefully you won't put something down that you would be miserable with, but also it's just for a season. And so we're going to need some C help in here to help us go through these and work it through. So I want to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to take a very quick break. And then if you already know, like if you've already thought about it and you've prayed about it and you've gone through a list and you know, go ahead and fill it out. Go ahead and fill it out and leave it up here. If not, if you don't know, take it home tonight, pray about it, and try and bring it back tomorrow, if you can. Okay? Where would you bring it tomorrow if you come tomorrow? Bring it in to the office and put it in Kirk's mailbox.
Nice.
Put it in Kirk's mailbox, and you'll see it right when you walk in the door on the right, and there's mailboxes with name. If you put it in mine, I'll get to it next week. Or 2 weeks maybe, 3 weeks maybe, I don't know. But put it in Kirk's mailbox or my mailbox, if you can tomorrow, if at all possible. But we need these back because time is of the essence. We've got to get these organized. Someone will call you and say, here's what we see, and we're going to ask you to be in this, and we're going to start developing teams based on what's coming back, and looking at personality, making sure that in each group, if possible, we've got an organizer, a developer, and a communicator.
Right.
Now, we may not have all 3 of those in each of these ministries. If not, we'll do the best we can, and we'll figure it out. But that's what's next. And then, as Kirk said, we'll have some time to get together. We'll get these ministries together under their charters, and we'll begin planning what do these look like, where do they go from here, and how can we be prepared to at least open the door for volunteers to come in, and we begin these ministries and we're fully functional by next year. Now, some of these ministries are already functional, and they just need additional people to help take them to the next level. Some of these ministries need to start immediately, and some of these ministries we can take some ramp-up time and be ready. But by the first of the year, the hope is that all of these are fully functional and moving. Is that okay with everybody? Everybody understand where we are? We've got half of the year basically still left. So that's how a D looks at the calendar. Yeah. We basically have half the year left. Not really, but we'll pretend.
5 months is half a year.
It is. And so we've got a lot of work to do here. Now, here's the last thing. If you're not ready for this, pray about it. We're not going to force you to serve in a ministry area. We are not. Listen to me closely, please. If you say, I am not ready, write us a note and turn it into us. And we'll talk to you. But I promise you, we will not make you feel bad. If you're not ready to serve, don't. I said very clearly in the very beginning of this Leadership Academy that some of you would just be better leaders in your homes, and it would stop there. If that's where you are, and you are sitting there going, I just want to be a better leader in my home or my workplace, I really don't want to serve here, it's okay. You keep coming to Leadership Academy. I promise we're not kicking you out. I promise we won't look at you weird. I promise we won't beat you up. I promise we won't go, oh, come on, you can do it. Now, what I don't want is for the devil to tell you you can't serve. And so part of that's going to be distinguishing between your own desire and what the devil wants to do. The devil will not want you to serve. Am I right on that? Everybody's with me, right? Pray against that, rebuke that, submit to God and go, God, where do you want me? And don't let the devil speak in. But if you really and truly are not ready for this, don't. It's okay. We love you anyway. I promise it'll be okay. But let us know so we're not chasing you down going, hey, can you turn this thing in? Because we need to start on it. If you're just not ready, just say, not ready. And it's okay, I promise, okay? So that's where we are. Yes? We are actually going to move on to something totally different. So probably what I would say is during the break, come ask a couple questions if you've got a couple, or write the questions on your sheet and we'll call you and we'll talk through it with you. Yeah. I'm about to go there. That's next.
This is a question. If you're already actively involved, do you want us to leave that one off or put that one on?
No, you have to put that one on. If you're actively involved in ministry, put that up there. And you might even write a note off to the side, already doing this. Just so, because if we invite other people in that are helping us diffuse through it, they may not know you're already doing it. So make a note. If you're a leader, not if you're a volunteer. If you're a volunteer, that's, I mean, you could write volunteer, but if you're leading in a ministry, you need to put that on there. Okay, any questions on that? All right, listen, I got one more thing to say to you before we give you a break. I want to explain the difference between life groups and affinity groups. Now, we took a break during the summer of our life groups for the most part. Part of it was because we need to relaunch them in the fall. So, by the way, Awana is going to start again. It'll be on Wednesday nights again. We've got a structure for that. It'll mostly be in the community center and some of the classrooms here because the youth group is outgrown upstairs. And so we're working through those logistics. If you're in the middle of that, don't freak out. We're okay. We're going to work it through. But Awana will be on Wednesday nights. It starts up in the middle of September. Life groups and affinity groups will start up around that time frame too. I will tell you that, and I'm going to define them for you, but life groups and affinity groups might meet at different times during the week. Although what's coming, and I'm not going to announce it today, what's coming is there's going to be a specific day during the week that we're going to pretty much block off of our Renew calendar. Because this place is hopping about 6 days or 7 days a week. And I think we need one day in the week that's really our Sabbath day. Because if you're serving on Sunday, it's hard to have a rest day on Sunday. And so we're going to have a day, it's coming, that we say nothing goes on in this building on this day, after daycare. Of course, we can't shut the daycare down during that day. But there will be an afternoon and an evening where we're going to literally shut the doors and go, sorry, this is our day of rest. And what my encouragement for the church community is going to be is spend time with your family. You must. Spend time away from here so that you can catch your breath. Because I know many of you are at this building every day or most of the days during the week. And that's great. Me too. But we need to make sure that we keep everything in balance also. And so that's coming. So here's basically the answer on life groups and affinity groups. Both of them, they're both basically the same. Let me say that. So both are going to be purposefully spiritual. We're not going to have church-related groups that just go out and just do whatever, fun things. We want to be purposefully spiritual in the things that we do. That means having purposeful time praying together or studying together, things like that. If we're doing stuff, we might as well. So for instance, if you wanted to have a dog walking group on Tuesday, can that be a purposefully spiritual event? The answer is yes. Could you invite your friends from the neighborhood that all have dogs and you all go together on Tuesdays and walk the dogs together? Yes. But if it's going to be a Renew thing, there needs to be a component of spirituality in it where we're praying and studying and doing a Devo and things like that. Make sense? All right, so all of Renew's life groups and affinity groups are purposely spiritual. Both fulfill the mission of Renew, which is that discover, develop, deploy, and disciple, that 4D kind of thing. Both fulfill the vision of Renew, which is we want to make an impact in this community. In some way, we want to replicate what we're doing, which is part of this, so that when we get ready to plant Renew North Little Rock, or Renew Valonia, or Renew Camp Bradley, or whatever that is down the road, these systems are in place and we can hand them over and it's duplicatable. Make sense? Because I'll tell you what, it was really hard to start a church from scratch with none of this stuff. And so developing it and then handing it over so that wisdom and that experience can be passed on is good. Both life groups and affinity groups are going to be about equipping people. Both are involving study, teaching, relationship, and service. It looks a lot like Acts 2:42. Although you don't have to eat together and everything, we're fellowshipping, we're studying the Apostles' Doctrine, and we're praying together. That's what our Monday night thing, huh? But you can, and it's highly encouraged because eating together is powerful and it's important. So here's what let me tell you what an affinity group is. So an affinity group is a specific interest or a specific demographic that you're trying to reach. So the dog walking group would be an example. If you want to create a dog walking ministry, that would become an affinity group, not necessarily a life group. A life group is generic. In other words, anybody can come, doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. It's a Bible study, it's prayer time, it's doing life together, and you're probably going to eat together and all that stuff in someone's home. That's a life group. But an affinity group is narrow focused. So you might have a dog walking affinity group where you get together on Tuesday afternoons and you all walk your dog together and someone leads a Devo and a prayer at the beginning or the end. Make sense? Dave Mills, right here, you raise your hand, Dave. He created an affinity group, and we had lunch this past week, and he laid this out for me and said, this is something I feel like God's leading me to do. And I said, great, wait for Saturday, because we're going to talk about this very thing. And his affinity group, and he has some photocopies, if you want to jump in and help with that, or utilize what he wants to do here and do your own, that's great. But it's basically a small group, an affinity group, a discipleship type group, where it'd be 5 to 10 people. They meet together on a weekly basis, and they study some sort of concept, but there's accountability partners, and they do training together and live this out. And that's important. And he's got some great stuff here. And there are components for spiritual disciplines and corporate disciplines together, and outreach and study. And it's a great affinity group thing, where it's a small group, a band of people that are going to really study together. But it's people that are all interested in growing a lot deeper and taking the things that we've learned and grow deeper in them. He's got a nice outline for it. You could either jump in with him and get started with it, or maybe, he's got 10 copies of this. I know, because I'm actually 9, because I stole one. But, to take that, maybe that's what you want to do. It's an example of an affinity group. But affinity groups, to me, are usually highly evangelistic, which means these are things that you can do. They may not be at this building. They may be at your house, or they may be at the city park, or they may be at a donut shop or coffee shop or whatever. And you're inviting people that you meet. Hey, I see you walk a dog. We've got this cool dog walking thing we do on Tuesdays. Why don't you join us? And they jump in, and it's a spiritual thing, not just a dog walking thing. Everybody with me? So life groups will launch. Those will be primarily on Wednesday, because that's when Awana and the youth group is. That system worked really well last year, so people can drop their kids off to Awana and the youth group and then go to their life group. But we'll probably have other times that life groups can meet also. But if you want to lead a life group, you need to talk to us about that. So I would say the affinity groups and the life groups, we need to talk. And so write that on there if you want to do an affinity group, life group. Here's the deal, guys. We probably need this many affinity groups or life groups right here. Everyone in this room could literally lead a life group if we're really calling the Renew community to get involved in a small group, because discipleship and growth and relationship building and serving all happen so well in those life groups. It's a great way to go. And if we call the 800 people that are connecting to get involved, we're going to need a whole lot of life groups. Not 3, but like 30. So, a couple of those things. We've asked you to try and be at all these leadership things. And we said, in the beginning, you could miss a couple of them, although we would expect you to watch it. One of the things we're going to say is you need to not have missed more than 2 of those, probably, to lead a life group. Because we need to make sure that there's unity in how we think and what we believe that's being communicated. Because what you communicate in your homes and life groups and affinity groups has to be the same message and Christology is what we communicate here. Otherwise, it causes division and confusion. And that's why we've asked you to make sure you're here. Now, if you've missed more than 2, you can talk to us. That doesn't mean you can't jump in and serve somewhere, but especially leading the life groups and affinity groups, we need it that you have only missed 2 or less of those if possible. So make sure you take notes on there, but write down if you want to do a life group. My hope, let me just say, you can put, everyone in here could put life group on there and I would be thrilled. We need lots of life groups. And what we're going to do in a couple of weeks, for those of you interested in running a life group, and by the way, that doesn't mean you have to prepare a sermon every week. We've got all kinds of resources and tools, DVD studies, and you can facilitate discussion. And if you have leadership, like you have an organizer, and a developer, and a communicator in the group, you can pull off a life group. You can. You have to have a home that's willing to source, have 12, 14 people in it, and a willingness to put a DVD in a DVD player at the least. And so we need these. We need these bad. And so in a couple of weeks, once we get the list back of who all has signed up, we will have a separate training session and we will train you how to be a life group leader. It won't be on Saturday, but we will find time. What we might actually do is do the training on DVD and give you a DVD or give you online reference off of YouTube so you can watch the training, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it too, because it's hard to get everybody in the room. But we are going to give you the tools you need to run a life group and run one well. So please don't let that scare you, but we really need to. And if we don't have enough sign up, you're going to see me on that Leadership Academy thing on Facebook going, come on, we really need life group leaders, please, please, please. And that's going to be an important part. Yeah.
I just want to say, if you don't feel like you have a home that can hold 12 to 14 adults in your living room, there are people that are not maybe equipped to lead, but do have a home that you can partner with and share that
Yeah.
with too.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so here's where we are. It's 10:40. We need to stop for now and take a 5-minute break. Okay, so just enough to pee and get a cup of coffee. We're going to probably go to about 11:40 because we got started about 10 minutes late. We've got one last thing that we want to do, and this is training you how to problem solve and think through stuff. And Kirk's going to jump into that in about 5 minutes. But again, if you are ready and fill this thing out, please. And you can leave it up here on the stage if you are ready to hand it in. If not, bring it tomorrow, put it in the mailbox, please. And if you're just freaked out and you just need to sit down with me for 20 minutes and talk, put that on here and I will do it. I will spend that time with you and we'll talk about it, okay? But don't leave here frustrated or freaked out. And if you just need more time, that's okay too. Write it on there. Or if you're not ready to serve, write it on there. No one's going to beat you up, I promise. I know I've said this like 3 times. You need to hear it. Don't let the devil tell you. Spencer will hate you if you don't sign up. Don't let him lie to you that way. It's not true. There's nothing you could do that would make me stop loving you, okay? So write that on here. Put it up on the stage if you can. Otherwise, bring it tomorrow. Even if it's just a note that says I need more time, okay? Last question, Don?
We have that. We have those results. We have those. I would maybe, if on the comments, if you want to put organizer, developer, communicator, if you feel comfortable with one or more of those roles in there, maybe comment there. But for the disc stuff, I've got it.
It certainly wouldn't hurt if you put on here number 1, I want to be a life group leader and I can be an organizer and developer. If you want to do that, that's great. Or if you are a communicator, put it on there. Or rock skipping ministry. I'm a good communicator, but I'm not a good organizer or a good developer. And we'll try and bring those together, okay? So 5 minutes. So it is 10:43, so 10:48. We'll start talking again. So quick break, pee, coffee, and come right back.